to focus exclusively on clean tech opportunities, and it's established itself as a real leader in this field. To his immediate right, we have Michael Gurin of Cognitech and SolSource. He is the chairman of Cognitech and the founder of SolSource LLC, and he's been instrumental in creating the vision and technology roadmaps for advancing energy conversion and thermal management technologies. So we'll be anxious to hear from Mike. Next, we have the Mayor of Long Beach. Glad to see you here again this year.
Pleasure.
Mayor Bob Foster, widely respected mayor, business leader, community leader, and the 27th Mayor of Long Beach with a background in the long-time background in the energy field, including being president of Southern California Edison. And then at the end, again, another return veteran to this panel. Thank you for coming, Jeremy. Jeremy Snyder, the general manager of Tesla Motors for the Southwest region. Did one of those roadsters show up today? Okay, good. So for the second year in a row, we have one of the Tesla Roadsters out here. And as I was saying earlier, I couldn't believe it. In just the last month, two people that I know have already gotten their Teslas delivered, and I have the whiplash to prove it. Very, very impressive. So I mentioned we're just going to kind of throw it out here, and I'm going to ask a very general question. Start with you, David, appropriate to our panel here. What is the outlook for clean tech investment in the next year to 2 years from your perspective?
Well, actually, I think it's pretty good, quite good. I think you'll see that a number of clean tech firms that were started anywhere from 3 to 8 years ago will begin having major liquidity events the second half of this year and all through next year. So either by that I mean either an IPO or sale to a major company at I think reasonably attractive prices. And when you have those type of liquidity events, that tends to draw the attention of the institutional investors, who will then start to put more money into the sector. And so I think that we will see more money in the sector over the next 12 to 24 months.
Okay. Michael, where do you see it?
Yeah, from the other side of the table, I think we're also very optimistic, though I would say in terms of the nature of the deal is quite different. There seems to be less willingness to take technology risk from the VC world, at least from our perspective. However, we're seeing strong interest by potential strategic partners. So we're looking at hybrid deals as opposed to, one particular scenario is where an investor that we're negotiating now in terms of the term sheet is that it's a classic equity investment, but part of it is being backed by a guarantee in terms of savings on a particular project that they're involved with. So it's a little bit in terms of strategic partners / equity investment, but they're not a classic VC in terms of from a funding perspective.
Well, actually, I want to get to the mayor here in a second, but in preparing for this, I read two articles that were diametrically opposed on the question. One said that VC investing is dead for the rest of this year, and the other one predicted that private VC investment was going to revive before the end of the year. So which one of those two is right, or where in between would you put it? For David?
As I said, I think it'll start to recover by the end of the year.
By the end of the year. Okay. And Michael?
With a slight bias in terms of from a technology perspective, I think it's different than what it was before. There was a lot of investment in terms of solar PV, looking at, for example, the actual conversion part, the photovoltaic part. And now you have some fairly mature companies for solar, and a lot of penetration by Chinese, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's less appeal in that particular area. So I think it's changing. in terms of the expectation. We're concentrating really in terms of energy efficiency and energy conversion, and we are seeing quite a bit of traction.
Okay. Mayor, I'd be glad to get your perspective on what are the trends you see.
I think it depends on where you are. If you're, it's hard for me to see how it could be better for renewable technologies that are sort of utility scale, and I'll explain that in a moment. In addition to my background, I'm currently also a member of the Independent System Operator Board, which runs the electric market in California. So I'm pretty familiar with what's going on. And you've got something like almost nearly 20,000 megawatts of renewables backed up in a queue right now to be able to trying to come online, get their permits, and get contracts with utilities. So when you consider that the whole system in California is a little over 50,000 megawatts, that's an enormous number. What's driving that is the renewable portfolio standards at the Public Utilities Commission and the efforts at the state legislature. But if you're in the wind solar business at a utility scale, those opportunities are great because you'll have a financeable contract that you'll have with a counterparty. So it's hard for me to see how you could have a more robust market out there. There are some technical issues on interconnections I won't get into, but that's a huge backlog of renewables that's being driven. If you're on the dispersed side, on the decentralized side, a little more difficult because then you have market conditions you have to deal with. And while there are tax credits at the federal and state level and other incentives that help you, you still have to go to the markets for financing or for venture capital, and those are difficult right now. The other areas that look very promising, I heard some in the previous panel talk about smart grid. Before I left Edison, I launched the advanced metering program, which is one of the essential pieces of the smart grid. But the smart grid by itself doesn't do anything. It doesn't create energy, it doesn't save energy, it's what you use it for. And I see a lot in the future of the interaction between the market that's out there and end users, where you will have an interconnection to be able to operate with the market and be able to run your business or run your industry or even potentially your house if it's down that small. And you could interact and get every 15 seconds with the market to be able to get the best deal you can get. That's one of the things that really I think has some real promise in terms of efficiency. But those are the areas I see are very robust in terms of potential for investment and business development.
Okay. Jeremy, you have I'm sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to add real quickly, though. I would agree at large, but I think in terms of a technology maturity standpoint, the ability to get PPAs, et cetera, are really good from wind and solar PV. But when you have a new technology, there's a huge gap in terms of getting project financing or bankable projects from a technology validation perspective. And in general, from what we can see, project financing is more difficult to come by as opposed to less difficult, at least at the very moment.
I agree with that. And give you an example of a technology that is essential to making renewables work, which is storage. And yet storage is not yet at the commercially developable stage. So trying to get either financing or some kind of capital to be able to move a system from the laboratory out into the field is very difficult. But I think you're going to see with the influx of intermittent renewable projects that are coming online, storage, for example, is one case. Whoever solves that problem eventually is going to do very well indeed. And I think you'll see government financing, government money coming into that sector because it's one of the things that will make the renewable system work.
Thank you. Jeremy, I think you would have an interesting perspective on this from your niche in the market.
Yeah, I think there's, from my perspective, a tremendous opportunity in a lot of the technologies that have already been mentioned, wind, solar. It's really economies of scale and being able to compete on a financial level to be able to power the cars we will be and are currently driving. There's tremendous opportunity there. I will say, financing is not my expertise, so